Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. WBC champion Deontay Wilder has given a very revealing and a very real interview to Yahoo Sports journalist Kevin Iole, in which he canvasses a number of interesting topics worth noting, including his thoughts on his upcoming bout with Luis Ortiz, which is yet to be finalised, but he's adamant it's happening, Anthony Joshua vs Joseph Parker, and also the prospect of extending his unbeaten record. So as we know, the Bronze Bomber, one of the most polarizing figures in all of boxing. Not just the heavyweight division, but all of boxing. Big character, loud, social media, he can often let his gums flap, and sometimes, some of the things he comes out with, it leaves you wondering, what is this guy doing? Where is his mind at? But I gotta say, this interview, it was refreshing. It was the real Deontay Wilder. He was real, he was direct, and he didn't need to turn on the bravado for the camera. It was just his thoughts, and, it was actually really good to see. Really revealing too. It wasn't just wild claims being thrown out there, but his real view on a number of important issues. So Luis Ortiz. So Wilder confirmed he's definitely fighting the Cuban, and he gave his reasons for giving him a second chance after he failed a pre-fight drug test in late 2017. So Wilder says he saw the buzz the first time around, and that people were excited about the bout. Ortiz was perceived as a boogeyman, one of the best of the division, and that in order for people to take him serious, those are his words, in order for him to be about what he says, also his words, he had to say, I want them all. He added that he only wants the best, and he wants to clean out the whole division, wipe the slate clean. I really like what I'm hearing there from Deontay Wilder. It's the right mindset. And let's face it, after 3 years as a champion, there is no more leeway for middle-of-the-road voluntary defences. So with that in mind, Ortiz represents one of the few guys Wilder should be fighting and will get credit for fighting and beating. The other thing to bear in mind here is that to create an even bigger blockbuster with the winner of the Anthony Joshua vs Joseph Parker matchup, Wilder has to be seen to be coming into it with some form, with a big name on his resume, on his record. That will help build a unification matchup, and in turn, it will generate more money. So, he is playing a long game here. He has to have someone like a Luis Ortiz on his record. And we know this as well. It's also going to go a long way to helping silencing his critics. Deontay Wilder, he was also asked about Ortiz's recent form, or perhaps lack of it, since a good win over Bryant Jennings in 2015. So Kevin Iole mentioned that they had a common opponent in the form of Malik Scott. And to give Wilder his credit, in his response here, it was a very good one. He stuck firm to his views about triangle theories, and that they are an unreliable way to gauge how a fight may or may not go, and that the real thing that counts is that styles make fights, and we know this. But just in terms of how Ortiz dealt with Malik Scott, and that was a Monaco fight, I think it was in late 2016, Wilder says Ortiz doesn't deal with movers. He doesn't deal with them well. He doesn't deal with the angles. He doesn't deal with someone athletic like that. He needs someone to be right there and in front of him, basically for the taking. And that led Wilder to ask, well, who exactly is Team Ortiz going to be bringing into a training camp to try mimic Deontay Wilder, his style, what he's going to bring in? He raised a good point. They might be able to get someone with the height and the range, but definitely not the athleticism and not the power. There's 4 different things there. They might be able to get a couple, but not all. And that's a really interesting point that Wilder raises. How will Ortiz prepare for Wilder? Who can he or will he be bringing in? Sure, you could bring in the likes of a Malik Scott, but will that give you some of what you actually need? And Malik Scott, maybe he's not the guy that he once was. And as we know, both guys dealt with him pretty effectively. You could also look at the likes of someone like a Hughie Fury. He showed against Joseph Parker Very good mover, very good athletically. But Wilder, in terms of him, he's right. Someone like a Fury, for example, you bring him in, he won't be able to mimic the power. I mean, there are a few other guys that Ortiz could potentially rope in for some top-level sparring, get some movement, that sort of thing. I mean, someone, for me, after watching his performance against Derek Chisora, Ajit Cabello, he might be someone that might be able to give Ortiz some good work. But like Wilder says, it's not going to be a like for like. But here's a thought out of left field. Maybe Ortiz, they could try to rope in someone like a Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, he's obviously retired these days at a bit of a loose end, but perhaps he will want to keep his hand in the game. Perhaps he might be interested in something like this. He would be able to give Ortiz some good work, and he kind of ticks all of those boxes there. I mean, it might be a bit of pie in the sky, but, you know, it's an interesting thought, just something that came to mind. Wilder, he was then asked about his thoughts about Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker, their potential unification matchup, which is set to be confirmed shortly. It's pegged for either late March or early April. So he thinks it's going to be a 12-round fight. Doesn't think there will be a knockout. He says he likes Parker, who's a good mover, but we really haven't seen Joseph Parker take on someone as strong as Anthony Joshua before, and we haven't seen him take a nice punch on the chin, as Wilder put it. But he thinks it should be a hell of a fight, which he thinks will be a long, drawn-out encounter, with Parker trying to stay out of Joshua's way, while Joshua will want to redeem himself from his last fight and get Parker out of there. Have to say, completely agree with Deontay Wilder on all counts there. That's pretty much, at this stage, how I see it all sort of shaping up and going down on the night. Obviously, between now and whenever the encounter takes place, I mean, there could be a few things that make me change my mind on that. But roughly at this point, I see that being a good fight, one that will go deep into it. And you just don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, Joshua goes in the favourite, and that's exactly what Wilder said. But Parker, he is in with a shout. I mean, in regards to should Joshua get past Parker, Wilder was asked about the business side for their potential matchup, for a unification for all the belts. Will the business side be a problem? So effectively, his payday. We know he's asked for 50% in negotiations with Joshua, whereas Parker has settled for somewhere between 30 and 35%. But Wilder himself, he says he doesn't think it's going to be an issue, especially after he beats Luis Ortiz, and because people will want the fight. They will want that undisputed champion. They'll make it happen. And he says he's open to travelling to the UK to take on Joshua, and that he's, as he says, a travelling warrior. He did actually note Joshua has never travelled in his career and doesn't seem to be open to doing it, but he himself is a traveller. And then, right near the end of the interview, for some reason, Kevin Iole decided to bring up Floyd Mayweather's 50-0 record. And was that something that Wilder had thought about, because he's now in sight of it? So Wilder himself said it's not really something he's given a lot of thought to, but others have mentioned it to him. And he stated that if he did set it as a goal, he thinks he probably could achieve it, because he is now entering his prime, and that there's so many things about what's happening in his career and with him right now that people don't realise, that he is basically in peak form. He is the best Deontay Wilder that we've seen. I guess it is good to have a goal, but if he does sort of go for that 50-0 or 51-0 as it would have to be, I mean, that is quite an achievement. And you look at him now, 39-0, racking up another 12 wins, most of which would have to be against very decent opposition at the top level. It'd be quite a feat. It's improbable, not impossible, but certainly improbable. But I like the mindset. And in general, this whole interview, it was very refreshing, very revealing. Deontay Wilder, he's looking dialed in for a big 2018. What do you make of some of the comments there? Some of the things Deontay Wilder had to say about Luis Ortiz and Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker, and the other things that came up. drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.